we made this post yesterday. Drag Illustrated posted this graphic of some of the social media back and forth for the fans or people tuning in who aren't massively plugged into the sport of drag racing or like super plugged into pro modified racing. Without question, the PDRA, 12 years strong of being the premier 8th mile drag racing sanctioning body. Two of their star drivers, Randy Weatherford and Ty Tutterow, your reigning defending PDRA Pro Boost world champion, went back and forth pretty extensively on social media over the course of the last few days. And this, of course, all relates back to the ongoing blower battles in Pro Mod drag racing, specifically the centrifugal superchargers, both Pro Charger and Hartz Chargers, versus the screw type, the PSI screw type supercharger. And it got pretty salty up in the comments, 145 you can see. But you got Dwayne Mills in there. You got Billy Stocklin in there. Billy Stocklin, I think this is one of the best lines of the whole deal. Screws haven't changed since 1983. Run a 1983 centrifugal supercharger, and then we can talk. I think that's actually pretty hilarious. And, you know, there's a lot of truth in that.
Steve Petty's in there. Petty's in there.
Yeah.
Maybe people should try EFI.
Yes. And Bob Harris is in there talking back and forth. And here, the point I wanted to make, Mike, that Brett Kepner alluded to this in one of the comments as well, that like this has literally been going on for 40 years, right? For as long as Pro Mod has existed, part of the community has been this ongoing battle. I mean, early on in its infancy, in Pro Modified's infancy, there wasn't a conversation because it was just nitrous cars. But as soon as the supercharger was introduced, and then not too terribly long after that, when the Hemi-headed supercharged combination was introduced, and then we had the turbocharged combination introduced. I mean, and there's been a lot of different things introduced to the class, but it just added another person arguing.
Yeah, for sure. But I would say, I mean, if there was a window where it was just nitrous, it was very small because the blowers have been there since the beginning, especially by the time the class was an official class. But even before that, like the pre-Pro Mod era, you look at like Bunker out west. There was a ton of,
yeah. I mean, all those original
Shelby. I mean, there's that's been the thing, nitrous versus supercharger, and now you've got
supercharger versus supercharger.
Supercharger on supercharger crime, which all the nitrous guys are just sitting back. I think the nitrous guys are just loving this right now because this is kind of how they've felt for a long time running against superchargers. And then now, you know, the screw blower has I wouldn't say dominate. I mean, your thing is you always say screw blowers ruin everything wherever they go. And maybe this is just the evolution of that. And we're seeing a combination that can compete with the screw blower and surpass it on boost and horsepower. And now they find themselves in a different position than they have really ever. I mean, the game has always been rein in the screw blowers so these other combinations can be competitive. And this is maybe one of the first times that we're seeing it not go that direction. And it's interesting for sure, but I would say Pro Mod is boring without this kind of controversy and without trying to run these combinations together. If you just take the easy path, in my opinion, and separate them out, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think it has its place, but Pro Mod is really the only class where you see more than two combinations, 3, 4, 5, 6 power adders or however many there are at this point that can all run together, at least for a short period. It works for a short period, and then it starts to get out of hand. One combination gets it upper hand, and then the rule makers and everybody has to go to work. But this, I feel like, is good for Pro Mod.
I was just getting ready to say that. And this is like me being 100% transparent. Like in the past, I would have argued that maybe we as Drag Illustrated, like in our involvement with the Winter Series or whatever, should like shy away from rule controversy, right? Like, let's not talk about it. It's just bad. I don't want anybody upset. But the more I watched this and have seen this develop, it's like, no, Wes, this is something we have to lean into. The design, you know, like you said, typically it's like, okay, how do we fix this? Let's split the classes, or let's run them all separate. Hartz versus Hartz, Pro Charger versus Pro Charger, Roots versus Roots, Screw versus crazy. Screw, right? But the reality is that, yeah, like the magic of this whole deal is all these people trying to do it their own way. And there's obviously a lot of people that are doing kind of a, you know, if it works for them, it works for me type of approach. But my point is that, man, this is something that we should lean into. And that's why I wanted to get aggressive with that content, because like I told the edit team, this drives conversation, this drives engagement on social, that gets people talking, and it forces them, not forces them, but gives them an opportunity to choose sides. Like, I was loving seeing comments like, whatever happens, happens. I just know that I want to see Jacob McNeil kick everybody's ass. Or then somebody put in there, whatever, do you have a championship? Ty Tutterow does, you know? And I'm like, okay, this is fantastic for the fan base. And for years and years and years, it feels like very few rules conversations were had out in the open. Very few of these type of conversations were had out in the open. This was the stuff that happened once a year at PRI, right? Maybe, or like behind closed doors, late night, early morning phone calls with racers pleading their case. And I go, you know what? We've got to take this whole rule thing and make it front page news, because, and it's working, because I think the next PDRA race is going to have infinitely more juice on it just because of this. Like, if there's a way to throw a switch and go, okay, how can we make a massive amount of people care about this? Well, now, boom, we threw a switch, because, I mean, it's just like pro wrestling or boxing. Like, this guy's going to fight this guy, and this is why you should care, right? That's our job. And I think this gives us an opportunity to go, okay, Ty Tutterow, Randy Weatherford, and Kurt Stedding, and Cam Hensley, and all these guys, they're going to be in the same place in a few short weeks. And we're going to get to sort this out. And to me, it's just because I will, you know, kind of closing commentary on this rules thing. They are close, Mike, they're close.
I know we dealt with it all winter,
really close.
And you know, this is like the cycle. We kind of pick up where the PDRA leaves off in the fall and adjust as we think needs to happen to make the field competitive going into Florida, which is its own thing at Bradenton. Things are a little different at that track, in that environment. And then we try to run all these combinations together. So we try to adjust for the roots blowers and the nitrous cars and the turbo cars. And then we had to deal with this all winter, and we could see it coming, from the Snowbirds to the US Street Nationals to the World Series of Pro Mod. It felt like half the field switched to a centrifugal supercharger from other combinations. Nitrous cars didn't qualify by the time we got to World Series of Pro Mod. And the story was already unfolding. Centrifugal won 2 out of the 3 races. And so it was kind of like, all right, we're done. Now PDRA is picking it back up, and IHRA and anybody NHRA Pro Mod.
Midwest.
They're all Midwest. They're all kind of have to contend with this. And I mean, we're in on the conversation as well. But I'm a little relieved, because it's like we just had to get through our series and not let things go nuts. And they didn't. And I felt like it was very competitive overall. If you look at the splits, the numbers, arguments can be made in both directions. But then now that the trend we saw, I think, is continuing, and it's going to continue through the season. What changes do these sanctioning bodies make, if any? And like you said, the story is there either way. If they don't make a change, it's a huge outcry, and the story swings that direction. If they do make a change, it's an outcry the other direction. And how are those teams going to adapt to this new change, whatever that may be? And then again, we watch it play out through the summer and fall, and then we kind of got to pick it back up and try to make it competitive with the highest stakes that are available and the most eyeballs that are on this whole thing. I've kind of felt like in the past that the whole rule thing comes up for our series only mainly because of the stakes, the audience, and the fact we're trying to run them all together. However, PDRA, I think, is maybe for the first time in a couple of years going to look at having to make an adjustment here right out of the gate. And so I think that the scrutiny on all of this has intensified. And I think that is in itself a great thing for Pro Mod. It tells me, coming off of the Winter Series, more eyes are on Pro Mod than ever and on this situation as we kick off the season with these IHRA, Midwest, and HRA and PDRA events. So I think overall it's a positive. The racers hate it. They love to act like this is, like the end of the world, and it's going to just, kill everything that they've done. But somehow we always find a way through it. And the sport, and Pro Mod in particular, goes on and I think becomes stronger.
I can't really argue any of those points. I'll tell you that I do think that there is some valid there. I can make a case either way as well, but I will tell you the biggest thing for me is I know that whole work harder on your program thing gets thrown around a lot, but I think the sport, Pro Modified specifically, is like waiting with bated breath for what's going to come next with screw type superchargers. I think that what we're really experiencing right now is a product line in the centrifugal superchargers that's much earlier in its life cycle than a screw type supercharger. And as Billy Stocklin said, I mean, these things have been around since the early 80s, were like routinely seen in top alcohol racing in the early 90s. And there was a period of time where it was like they were completely, and I think my words are true, like wherever screw blowers went, they ruined everything. Like it just was a combination that everything was way behind. And it also had a lot of like other really tangible factors like reliability, availability of parts, etc. Like there was a lot of data, there was a lot of fuel system information out there, there was a lot of ignition timing information out there. So it was, the barrier to entry became increasingly beneficial or whatever, or increasingly reduced. But we've seen this centrifugal supercharger deal, both ProCharger and Hartz, just the rapid escalation of this deal. And I feel we're going to need to see maybe that sealed unit, maybe some changes in that world if we want to see pro mod cars with blowers sticking through the hoods, because there is, I mean, I just reading the tea leaves, it looked to me like Stevie Jackson was hinting at coming out with a centrifugal blower. All the reports are that they make, obviously significantly more boost. They make, on average more horsepower. So there's a lot of stuff moving around on this. And even if they were equal, I don't know. It's a very interesting conversation. And my point here is that this is fantastic for pro modified drag racing. It's a great way to get people to plant their flag. It's a great way to get a hook in the fan base, because most of these guys are willing. There are several people in that thread, Mike, that I've never seen post on social media.
I know. I've never seen Steve Petty comment in a post before.
No, I mean, Kurt Stedding's in there, Randy Weatherford's in there. And I'm going, okay, this is good for drag racing. And everything these guys say, I'm going to make sure the world sees it. Everything they put in writing, we're going to make sure the world sees it. And I hope other people in the media are recognizing that there's stories here, because we need help telling these stories. Like we need this to be front page news. And this type of drama doesn't exist anywhere else in drag racing.
Yeah, like you said about Stevie coming out with centrifugal. And I mean, Stevie's a business person and he's in a business to sell engines. Most of these guys that tune these things are. I don't want to see what we saw start to happen at the Winter Series, where these other combinations, guys abandon them because, they're not going to continue to piss up a rope, for lack of a better term, for too long. And these are racers and they're going to do what it takes to win. And so I think you do have to something has to be done, or you will end up with an entire field of centrifugal superchargers. Even the most staunch nitrous, screw blower, whatever, turbo. We saw a lot of the turbo guys convert. You're going to lose these other combinations, and it's already started. And I don't know that it can be prevented. These things do go in cycles, but man, I sure hate to see these guys that like a Stevie Jackson or a Todd Tutterow, or we saw it like Murder Nova. I know that Jimmy Taylor hasn't made the switch yet, but like Murder Nova, Vic Alvarez, these guys that made the switch that are diehard turbo guys have already made the switch. Chris Thorne. That hurts.
Ed Burnley. We lost Ed Burnley. I mean, really, if you think about it, we lost Jason Harris, Ed Burnley, Randy Weatherford,
Jay Cox,
Johnny Camp, Jay Cox. We've lost a lot of people from nitrous racing to the centrifugal supercharger. So I wouldn't be surprised. And what I don't want to see is just the economic impact of it. Like, obviously it's fantastic for Hartz and ProCharger, but I also like putting myself in the position of these racers who have done something, have 2 or 3 screw blowers or whatever, have a car that's built for that. Like, all those things are, I feel like we have to consider them. You know what I mean? Like, guys are invested. Like, I can't imagine John Salemi, Melanie Salemi, those guys like standing around a car that had a flat hood on it. Like, and I just think there's some
you
of
let
these
it go long enough,
right? And that's what's going to happen.
You force their hand, and that's the tricky part. You don't want to make a huge change, but at the same time, you can't let it go too long to where everything becomes obsolete. And we've seen this over and over and over throughout the history of pro mod, and I just feel like the stakes are higher than ever. So we'll see what comes of it, but it's kind of already the top story in pro mod drag racing as we start the season.